Welcome to Your Conestoga Today. I'm your host, Mamuzo. Money touches every part of our lives, our choices, our confidence, and even how we perceive ourselves. But for many students, young professionals, and those navigating big life transitions, money can feel more like a source of stress than security. Why do so many of us feel anxious, ashamed, or stuck when it comes to money? And more importantly, how can we shift that story? On today's episode of Your Conestoga Today, we're diving deep with Jessica Morehouse, host of More Money podcast, television personality, financial expert, and author of the eye-opening book, Everything But Money: The Hidden Barriers Between You and Financial Freedom. Jessica is here to unpack the psychology of money, help us decode the emotional blocks that hold people back, and offer real, actionable steps to rewrite our financial stories, no matter where you're starting from. If you're battling student debt, questioning your worth, recovering from financial mistakes, or just trying to build a better relationship with money, this conversation will meet you where you are. And for this one, it would be helpful to make some notes because what we're about to uncover goes beyond budgets and bank accounts. This is about financial empowerment that starts from the inside out. It's great to have Jessica Morehouse, the author of Everything But Money, The Hidden Barriers Between You and Financial Freedom. Jessica, thank you for being here today, and how are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Great. So occasionally I have to tilt my head to the left because I want to see Jessica in full form, but if I turn my head forward here, it's just a bit of you I get to see. Now, my first question today is, let's just start big from the very big
Yeah.
point and what this book is about. What are those barriers that hold us back from financial freedom?
Yeah. So, initially I had the idea to write a pretty, prescriptive traditional personal finance book because I've been working in this field for over 13 years. But then there's a different bunch of different circumstances that kind of led me to what the book really is about. And it really is about everything but money. I keep hearing that from people who finish the book. They're like, oh, it really is about everything but money. And the whole purpose of the book is, I have talked to probably thousands of people at this point over the past decade, of people who come to me because they're struggling financially in one way or another. And they're trying to find some solutions. They're trying to find some advice to help them move forward. And, technically, you can learn anything you want on the internet for free. If you want to learn piano, you can learn piano. You can learn anything. However, as someone who's been, a financial educator and content creator for this long, and, again, sometimes I feel like I've said it all. I was always kind of, curious, why is it though that people are still struggling? Why aren't they being able to move forward? And it's because it may not be a lack of finances and it may not be a lack of financial literacy. A lot of the people I come in contact, they know quite a bit about what to do and what not to do. They're just not doing it. And so I really wanted to have a book that explored the why, because most people know more than they think they do, and they're more capable than they think they are, and they have more money than they actually think they have in the bank. And so I really want to explore, here are all the internal and external barriers that you may face, that you may have no idea about, that may be the actual reason why you don't know how to get out of debt or stay out of debt. You don't know why you can never save up that amount of money for your emergency fund. You don't know why you're so scared of starting to invest and you just haven't started. So all of these things I put into the book, and it's pretty meaty, and so we really go into the weeds. We talk about your feelings with money. We talk about trauma. So, any kind of traumatic event that has happened to you, you may not realize that there is a financial impact, not just a personal impact, generational trauma. So we have an inherited trauma from our parents, grandparents, great grandparents, and it could be financial or otherwise that, again, has impacted us. And we have no idea because it's living in us, but we've just never reflected on it. And of course, there's, the other kind of barriers that are just being a human. We have these human biases that make us make maybe not the best financial decisions because we think that we're doing the right thing, but we need to act opposite when it comes to our money. And then there's a bunch of societal barriers and injustices that are making it harder for a lot of people in certain groups to, earn enough or, get forward or just get, fairness in the financial industry. And so I want to explore all these different facets. So when you're reading the book, you can probably pinpoint a few things that really mean something to you. And you could be like, oh, light bulb, that's what it is. And I just had no idea that that was ever connected to money.
And do you know the beautiful thing about your book is that you meticulously laid out the details, around the psychology of, financial freedom. Now, I know you did mention some of the importance why we need to look into the psychology that
Yeah.
drives how we, work towards financial freedom, especially for people who are young. I really want you to please help us expatiate. Why do you think it's important for young people to start to think of the habits, the
Yeah.
character, the mindsets that holds them back from becoming, financially liberated?
Yeah, I think most people, especially young people too, when they are just starting out their financial journey, may not realize how much they've been impacted or what kind of values and habits and even skills are ingrained in them just from listening and more observing your parents or your community, your family, and see how did they interact with money, and are you just replicating what they're doing and you didn't even know you were doing it, or I found that there's a big segment. Most people copy what their parents doing because that's what they know. Or if they're really like, I don't want to be like my parents, I want a different outcome, then they do the opposite. They kind of overcorrect and completely rebel instead of maybe taking the things that work and maybe leaving the things that aren't working. And so until you really understand where your family, your parents come from when it comes to their finances and their money mindsets and some of the things that they say. I mean, I bring up a lot of real stories. I interviewed a number of people for the book to find out what was it like growing up in your family. What are some of the things that are maybe, part of you that you may not realize. I even did that for myself. I did a big introspection of my own family and some of the habits that I have and some of the fears and some of the anxieties and things that we never were able to quantify before. And when you really do that digging, then you'll realize, oh, there's a reason why I've always thought to myself, I'll never be able to build wealth or retire one day. And that's because that's the belief my parents have and my grandparents. And maybe we've always generationally kind of lived in a state of poverty. And so I never thought that I'd be able to break out of that. And until you realize that, they're like, oh, well, that doesn't have to be true for me because I can make different choices and I can, retrain myself and, adopt better habits and leave some of the habits that aren't serving me away, and I can have a different future. But until you, again, really do that inner work, you're just going to be replicating and completing the same cycle as your parents and not really getting anywhere different.
You nailed it, Jessica. Thank you very much for that. Now, I mean, I agree with you. Most of our earliest beliefs about money come from home or culture, and we very much just replicate what we're used to. But what are the actionable steps to take to identify those setbacks, and how can we start to change our narratives?
Well, yeah. So it really starts with understanding our money story, our narrative. What is the story we've been telling ourselves about money up until this point? Because again, unless someone's asked you that or you come across my book and you're like, oh, I've never thought about that before, you will just, be kind of on autopilot. And that's often what I hear from people who, I'm a financial counselor. So when I work with someone who's in their 30s, 40s, 50s, they are like, oh, I've never thought about that. Or no one's ever asked me how I feel about money or what are some of the values that I have, and do I actually believe in them? I just kind of adopted them and never kind of questioned them. And so really it starts with, I have a bunch of exercises in the book as well, identifying how does money make you feel and be really honest with yourself. And it's okay. Again, it's just you answering this for you. And then doing kind of the digging of, okay, where do some of those feelings stem from? Is it, occurrences, some events that have happened to me? Is it just, observing, listening to my parents or seeing what, has happened in my family and kind of taking some of that and ingraining it in me? Is it, the friends that I have also, a lot of us are very influenced by who we hang out with. And is that part of it? And so really kind of starting putting to the pieces together to write out your current money story so you can better understand and kind of take a step back to be like, oh, so that's why I am how I am with money. That's why I feel these ways or think these things, because this is where it's all kind of come from. And then once you have that kind of foundation to work with, you have this money story, then you can start breaking it down into, okay, well, this actually doesn't make me feel good. I don't like this value. It's not actually from me, it's from my parents, and I don't actually agree with it. So I'm going to make a concerted effort to kind of reframe things. So for example, if you ever thought, there's one story I share in the book about, a lot of us were taught that Bible verse of, the root of all evil is money, or money is the root of all evil, right? And that's actually not quite the full verse. It's actually the kind of obsession with money, or when you put too much importance on material things. That's really what it's about. It's not money is evil. It's just, well, if you put all of your obsession and become too materialistic, that's not good. And yeah, that's fair. But I think a lot of people take it too far, thinking that anything to do with money is bad. And so that is going to have some repercussions. And so you may want to reframe that. Be like, yeah, I think I'm going to rewrite this lesson that I adopted automatically, and rewrite something to be like, well, there are some negative things with money. We can't lie, but there's also some really good things. If you don't have money, how are you going to be able to donate to charity? How are you going to, help support your family, your community? How am I supposed to help myself if I don't have any money to do that? How am I going to, make sure that I'm financially secure so then I am in a better place to help others? And so it's really about identifying some of those things and then reframing or rewriting those lessons, and then maybe adding some new things into there. So ultimately you can break things down to rebuild yourself into the money story of where you want to see yourself in the next 10, 20 plus years.
Your section reminds me of the popular song, Money, Money, Money. It's so funny. It's the rich man's word. But I believe that there is some connection between money and how we value ourselves. Now, you're the expert, so correct me if I'm wrong, but it's something we don't often talk about. People feel like their self-worth is tied to how much they have, their financial status, etc. Could you please shed some light on that?
Yeah, I think that definitely has something to do with our capitalist society, and everything that we see in the media, in movies, social media, is that your self-worth is connected to your personal net worth, which really has nothing to do with it. I know some amazing people that don't have that much money. So how much money does not equate to how good you are as a person, how valuable you are as a friend, how talented you are. When we really think about it that way, and think about the people in our lives, we're like, well, yeah, I've actually never thought about how much money they have. I just think they're a great person. But when we think about ourselves, we compare ourselves to probably people who have more and think lesser of ourselves. Or there are, unfortunately, some people who have a lot of wealth that I think are so disconnected to the realities of what most people live. They think that if you don't have money, you did something wrong to get there. That was a choice, when it could be circumstance or all these other elements for why some people have less and some people have more. So, obviously, I don't have the solution for how to solve capitalism and all the things that go into there. But what you can do on an individual level is really reflect on who am I? Who do I want to be? What do I want my identity to be? And really come up with your own number of, well, how much do I need to live the life that will make me feel good and satisfied and fulfilled? Likely it's a lot less than you think, because sometimes you'll, ask someone on the street, they're like, I need $5 million. No, you don't. You don't need $5 million. That's a lot of money. What are you going to do with that money? You probably need a lot less to meet all of your needs and some of your wants and feel fulfilled and be able to get the freedom that you want, the security that you want. So really, again, doing that step back moment and think, okay, what do I want? Because I don't think I've been able to ask myself that question in a very long time. And there's a whole chapter about, the connection between money and happiness. And I think often we think the more money, more happiness. And there are some studies that say yes, but to a point. And the other more important stat that I found from the study said that although more money could potentially increase your happiness to a certain point, what it cannot do is solve your unhappiness. So if you're already not very happy with your life, you're unsatisfied, you're unfulfilled, more money is just going to bring you more money, but it's not going to help solve those, inner issues. Therapy can help, and money can help buy therapy, but, money itself is not the solution. And I think too often we think, if I just had more money, I wouldn't have any problems. But I think we can see from the news and the media, there's a lot of wealthy people that don't seem very happy and have some problems that I personally would not want those problems. I'm like, I'm glad I don't have that much money, if that's what that means.
That's such a profound point, and it brings me to my next question. Now, you've actually managed people who are navigating students' debt, career changes, financial crisis, or anxiety. What are those emotional or mental signals, that you often see that sort of highlight that this person is stuck in a disempowering money situation?
I think largely, and you've talked a lot about, I think, over the past couple of years, the idea of imposter syndrome or just not having that self confidence in yourself. And, we're our harshest critics. I was my harshest critic, and I talk a lot about this in my book. I didn't realize how negative I talked about myself. And so that's a big thing when I work with clients one on one. Not only do we work on the financial component, but also a lot of it is like the counseling component. So really listening to what they're saying, but also what they're saying about themselves. Because when you repeat it back to them, like, oh my gosh, that is a bit judgmental, or that might be a bit too critical. I don't know why I said that. I would never say that to a friend or a family member, but we are so harsh on ourselves. So really, I think a big thing that we also need to do when we are working on our financial lives and improving that aspect of our lives is to really reflect on how we treat ourselves, because we can be pretty harsh, and that is going to be a big barrier. Because whenever you think of like, okay, well, I should try to get that promotion, or I should switch jobs for a better salary, or I should start that business, or I should start investing, if you haven't, really figured out a way to create boundaries with your, maybe the negative self-talk part of yourself, you're always going to have this little voice in your head that says you probably won't, succeed. You're probably going to fail. You're probably going to mess it up and make a bunch of mistakes. Better not even do anything. Just stay in your lane. And, I see people that do that. And yeah, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, they're the exact same position, maybe a bit worse because of inflation. And so you really want to do that self work. And again, I do talk about the importance of therapy to really better understand yourself and some of the self limiting beliefs that you've maybe been living within. And again, are probably unaware of up until this point. But I did a lot of therapy during the writing of this book so I could do the work on myself. And it really did make the biggest shift, even though I'd say nothing has really changed in my financial life compared to 2023 when I wrote this book. I'm so much happier, satisfied, and fulfilled with the life that I have. Like, honestly, I can look back like there was actually no problem, but I thought there was a problem, or I thought I needed more. But actually, I learned to love, what I have and be really grateful. And, that's, I think, a big missing element is just being happy with the good, not just focusing on what you don't have.
Yes, because sometimes we think that it's just all about the money, but I don't think,
Yeah.
I haven't heard you now, money is just one of the many
It's just a tool.
elements. Yeah.
It's just a tool to maybe, get the things that you need or want, or to kind of fulfill certain things, but it's not the be all and end all. Sure, like having a little bit more money, that could be a few more trips this year. But at the end of the day, what I found to bring me the most happiness and fulfillment is my relationships, my friends, my family, and simple things. And I have a whole, section on like these are actually the things scientifically that will bring you more joy than buying something. And they're very simple, such as like being engaged in something, whether that's a video game or a puzzle or a book. That brings you so much more joy than going to a store and buying, a new pair of shoes. That the joy of like buying a new pair of shoes will dissipate so much quicker than, say, being engaged in a puzzle.
I love it. Okay, now I'm going to take you through my first engagement session. And in this session, I'll be asking you questions very rapidly. So it's more like quick fire.
Okay.
Rapid fire questions. And so you only need to say truth or myth, and then maybe if you choose, explain a little bit why you think it's truth or myth. Because I really want our audience to leave this session today thinking about the decisions they have made so far and how they can start redirecting themselves towards financial freedom. Okay, so my first question is, a good credit score means you're financially responsible.
Well, sort of. It means you're responsible with credit, but I think a lot of people think that your credit score means that you're good financially, or it's your financial health score. All it means is that, in the past, you've been responsible with your credit. But even still, sometimes if you're, again, Unit Canada, or, you're 18 and now you can access credit, you'll have like zero credit score. And that's because you haven't started yet. So that doesn't mean that you're bad with money. It means you're just at the starting line. So honestly, I tell people don't put that much importance on your credit score. Like, don't think of that as the number that you need to focus on. Focus on it by doing the responsible things to increase it over time. But there's some other things that you should probably put more attention on.
Hopefully, we'll talk about those other things later. Okay.
Yeah.
So the second question is renting is just throwing money away.
Oh, I don't like that because how is that? How is paying for shelter throwing money away? Like we've all had to rent at some point in our lives, likely. I rented for many, many years. So I think it's because back in the day, buying property was one of the only ways to actually accumulate wealth because it was very expensive to actually get into the stock market and invest in that way. Things have changed. It's a lot easier to invest in very different ways outside of, buying a home. And also, too, there's the other thing, buying a principal residence isn't necessarily the best investment. So sometimes I know lots of people are renting and then with the money savings, because they don't have to pay property taxes or all these other things, all the updates to the home. And believe me, I'm a homeowner. I know it is more expensive to own than to rent. They are investing the difference and being able to build wealth that way. So I don't think renting is throwing them away.
Okay. I think you already did great justice to this question. If you earn more money, your money problems disappear. I think we already, you could just say a few more.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So yeah, no. The problems will still be there. You'll just have more money in your bank account.
And maybe sometimes more trouble too. I don't know.
More trouble, more money, sometimes more trouble. Yeah.
Okay. How do you feel about money? How you feel about money is connected to how you feel about yourself. Is that
I think that's just natural. That's being a human. And especially because society puts that pressure on every single person. Just like we sometimes maybe put that same kind of feeling of like how many social media followers do you have? And we're like, it doesn't actually matter. But I think, yeah, often we tie how we feel about ourselves or what we think our personal worth is to how much money we have. And we need to stop that. We need to figure out a better way to really, put an importance on ourselves. Because yeah, money really, there's a lot of people that have a lot of money that are not good people out there.
True. Totally agree with you. Now, it's not worth it to pay off students' loans early.
I probably would have given you a different answer before all the changes with student loans. But now that you can get most of your student loans interest rate free, yeah, I would say don't focus on paying off those loans. If you have other debt, consumer debt that's more expensive, focus on that. And then, continue to pay off as much as you can in those student loans. You don't want to have that debt for too long. But I would say you'd probably get a better rate of return saving money, investing that money than paying off your student loans.
Okay, this is a simple, basic one, but I'm still going to ask anyways. Everyone should have a budget no matter how much they earn.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people don't like the term budget, and I get it. There's a kind of a negative connotation. Do you think it's going to restrict you? It's going to, make you live a life of frugality and just, having to say no because you can't afford things. So I talk about in the book, and if you don't like the word budget, give it a different name. The proper name really is spending plan, a plan for how to spend your money. Everyone needs a plan for how they want to spend their money. Otherwise, then you're just, then what are we doing here? You're going to be spending it and you're not going to know how much did I earn? How much did I spend? Where did that money go by the end?
Impulse your eye in.
Yeah, I have nothing to show for it. So having a clear plan of, okay, this is the money coming in. These are all of my financial obligations with my expenses. Here are my savings goals. Let's figure out a great strategy so we can meet all of our needs and our future wants.
That's beautiful. Now, financial freedom starts in the mind, not the bank account.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You have to believe in yourself and your potential and the fact that, like, even if you're starting from ground zero when it comes to your financial literacy, you're like, I don't know anything about money. That's okay. Neither did I. When I was in university, I didn't know anything. I didn't know the difference between a checking and savings account. That was how little I knew about money. So it's something that anyone can learn. This is not rocket science. It's not brain surgery. Anyone can learn about the basics of money management. And it's never been easier than now to find this information either online or in books. And everyone is capable of improving their financial situation and achieving financial freedom. I personally believe that.
Okay, I'm going to quote a line from your book. It says, it's never just about the money. It's about what money means to your safety, your story, your identity. Now, this line from your book is both profound and personal because I know you said some stories about your personal self and how, how you grew as a third child, etc. I don't want to delve into that right now. I just want us to focus on when people say they want more money, what deeper needs or fears are usually driving that need or aspiration?
Hmm. Yeah, when people say I want more money, really the other question should be like, okay, what do you actually mean though? What do you actually need? What do you actually want? What are you trying to, what kind of like maybe empty hole are you trying to fill? And then money usually has nothing to do with it. But we think it should be the solution to all of our problems. And so for me, I had some stuff that I was going through and I was using money as a band-aid. I thought, well, if I have more money and financial success and all these things, then all those things should go away, right? And then no matter how much I accumulated or whatever kind of financial milestone I achieved, I still felt the same way. So I guess money actually wasn't going to be the solution I was thinking of it. So you really need to identify, what do you actually need? What's actually going on underneath the hood? And again, a therapist can definitely help you kind of crack that open so you can better understand, oh, actually, I'm trying to heal from this, or I'm trying to fulfill this, or there's something else a little bit deeper than money that's going on. And I was just using money as a band-aid because I thought it would make all the difference. And it's unfortunately not.
I know. Okay, what are the most common money mistakes people in the 20s usually make, and how can they course correct those?
Yeah. So, oh gosh, now that I'm in my late 30s, I can look back to my 20s and I'm so glad I actually did some of the things that were kind of uncool or people were not doing in their 20s. But that's when I started learning about personal finance. And so, honestly, you really do want to have some clear goals. Like, what are we going to do in our 20s? I want you to have fun and enjoy everything it is to be a young person, but I also don't want you to sacrifice your future by doing that. So I don't want you to get into debt by buying expensive concert tickets. I feel like there is a balance. You can get a lot of the things that you want while also making plans for the future. The biggest issue I find with young people is they have a hard time, and I get this, have a hard time picturing themselves older in their 30s, 40s. They're like, that's miles away. And as you know, maybe you do, I don't know how old you are, but I'm sure, I don't know. But for me, as someone who's like approaching 40, I'm like, oh my gosh, what happened?
Yeah.
Like I blinked and I'm this age. Time goes by very quickly. And so you really do need to start laying that foundation for your financial future literally in your 20s. And it doesn't have to be a lot of money because I know you're probably just starting out, but even if you just start starting those habits of saving, investing, paying off debt, then staying out of debt, figuring out ways to grow in your career so you can earn more money down the line. Those are things that are going to help you in your 30s, 40s, and upwards that you're going to thank yourself for. And it's just a little kind of anecdote. I also work with people in their 50s and 60s, and their biggest regret is not taking their finances seriously earlier because you can't go back in time. You can only reflect. You're like, oh gosh, I wish I did something different. So just remember that you're like, oh, right. We only have so much time, and your 20s really are. There's a great book I love to tell 20-year-olds to read called The Defining Decade. And the 20s really is your defining decade. You need to define, where do I want to go from here during that pivotal decade. And so really take the time to plan out where we want, even if you're going to end up in a different direction. Believe me, I'm in a different career than I thought I would be. That's okay. But you want to lay the foundation for success in your 20s.
Awesome. Now, Jessica, I know that education plays a huge part in helping us have a mind shift. We have a couple of, financial experts online who give great advice, and sometimes it can be confusing. You don't know exactly what might be, realistic for you. What would be your advice to a student who's eager to learn everything around financial, literacy, and yet safeguard himself from bad, influences?
Yeah. Yeah. So, like I said, there's so many great resources now that did not exist when I was in my 20s. And that's great. But also there's a lot of filtering you have to do. There's some bad advice out there. There's some stuff you're like, I don't know if that's a good thing I should be doing, especially if someone is maybe selling something or they're just telling you something that in your gut, you're like, I don't know, that seems like a scam. So you want to be careful who you take advice from. I always kind of tell people, books are great because you do have to do research for those, and they're vetted and they're edited. And so you're not going to find, maybe some of the stuff that you could find on social media or Reddit on there. But also in terms of like, okay, what steps should I take just to start building my own financial literacy? I would start with the basics, such as that spending plan. Let's get that foundation. Let's figure out what's going to go on with my money and set that intention and that habit. And then if you've got debt, okay, let's really focus on, can we create a debt repayment schedule? And let's figure out that plan. And then once we've got a good kind of system going, then let's start, okay, what's this thing about investing? Let's take a look at that. How can we start investing? And again, investing seems really complex and scary. It's really not. There's some really great resources and books, and I've got a whole podcast that talks a lot about these topics. So it is a lot easier to learn about these things than, again, it was when I was, 15 years ago. And so just start the building blocks of like, okay, budget, then debt, then investing, and laying that kind of foundation for yourself. And then eventually you're going to reach a certain point. You're like, oh, I think I kind of know most of the things. Like, you don't have to make a career out of this. You just need to know, how can I get the things that I need and want? What tools should I be using? What habits should I be instilling? And then how can I just, keep on top of that?
I think this is a good place to tell them where to find you on social media. You do have a podcast called More Money Podcast, and you give great resource and support. So if you want to grow your financial freedom, or if you want to grow into financial freedom, you do need to check out Jessica Morehouse, by the way. Her book is also on Amazon, on Indigo, any other platforms?
Everywhere. It's pretty much
everywhere you find books, you'll find her book, Everything But Money, Hidden Barriers Between You and Financial Freedom. There. Okay, I have more questions for you, Jessica. And I'm wondering, for students who are trying to, right now, maybe those who are just graduating or about to graduate, trying to, hit a new transitional level of their lives, money is a big part of that as well. What actionable steps can they take? I know you mentioned a few things earlier, or have that spending plan laid out. After I have done my spending plan, can I start investing? Maybe, I don't know, should we start buying stocks, or what advice would you give?
So I'd say, once you have that spending plan, your first priority out of the gate should be that emergency fund. So we just want basically a special account that has cash in it, because something will happen where you're like, uh-oh, I need some cash. And I don't want to put it on my credit card and then be in credit card debt, because then that will just put me so many steps behind. So emergency fund is number one. That's got to look like 3 to 6 months of your living expenses, and you'll know what your monthly living expenses are when you create a spending plan. And so that should be, and I remember honestly being in my 20s, learning that in a book. I'm like, that's some really great advice. And that was what I focused on my first year out of university and working. I want to save up a fully funded emergency fund. And it took me a full year. It might take you a bit longer, and that's okay. But once I did it, oh, the feeling of like, oh my gosh, I am capable. Look what I just did. And I never thought I could do that. And then that will give you the momentum and the confidence to then take the next step, which is like, okay, maybe I should open up a TFSA or an RRSP and start investing. And also look into, how do I actually do that? Now, there's a multitude of ways you can do that. For young people, especially, I love a robo-advisor. There are some really great robo-advisors that automate it. They got you investing in a portfolio of low-fee index funds. I'm a big fan of passive investing, so that might be one route you want to take. But also just do your research and see what's out there. I would say stay away from anything too speculative, anything too risky, because at this moment, we only have a finite amount of money to start investing and building that wealth. We don't want to, lose it. And then there's so many studies to show that if you are younger and then you do like buy some hot stock because you think it's going to go to the moon, and then it tanks and you lose your money, it is going to be a big hit on your confidence, and you're going to not want to invest for a while because you feel like you're bad at it. Oh, the stock market's too risky. But really, it's just like, well, that particular investment was too risky for you. So we really want to be aligned in, what is the right way to invest for me, and making sure you take the appropriate amount of risk.
Okay. When we think about finance, we think about Wall Street, right? That's where we hear all the numbers and all the figures and all the data that determine if we can invest into something or not. And so this next game is about Wall Street or wellness. Like I told you earlier, when you go on social media, there's so many advices that sometimes can trip you off. And so buyers beware.
Yeah, I'm careful.
So so I would like to pick your brain on this one, and then you can advise us. I will share a few quotes, and then you can tell us if it's from Wall Street or from the wellness experts.
Okay.
And then you can decide to explain a little more about why you think it's from the Wall Street or from the wellness. Okay. So let's go, Jessica. So my first question is, It's harder than it sounds because money and mindsets are more connected than most people realize. Okay? So
So is
let's
this
see
from
how
Wall
well you know.
Street?
Yeah.
Yeah, is this from Wall Street or social media? Is that the
No, no. So the question is this from Wall Street or from a wellness expert?
oh,
So
oh,
Wall Street.
I'd say wellness. I can't imagine someone on Wall Street saying that.
Oh, okay, that's good. Okay, that's good. Now the next one says, okay, go ahead, please. The next one says, discipline is choosing between what you want now or what you want most. Is that from the wellness coaches or from the financial experts?
I mean, that could be kind of both. That's a hard one. That could be either. So maybe I'll say Wall Street this time, but it could be either.
Okay, then. Now, your beliefs create your results.
But that sounds very wellness to me.
Okay, if we're to flip that phrase or that sentence, how would Wall Street say that?
Okay, what was the phrase again?
Your beliefs create your results.
Mm. How would Wall Street say that? I guess it could be your personal beliefs of your potential will dictate your financial future. That's probably how I'd probably rephrase it.
Yeah, that's true. And like you told us earlier, your mindset is really what drives, your ability to create wealth. It's not about having more money per se. It's about doing much with what you have, right? Being
Exactly.
strategic with what you have. Okay. Now, peace is the real currency. Wall Street,
Peace.
honest.
Ugh, that's probably wellness. People on Wall Street don't want peace.
And don't we learn about that?
Well, people who work on Wall Street, they need to read my book. Because these people have so much money, they are earning so much money in their jobs. And you're like, why aren't you retiring? It's because they're not in it for the money. They're in it for the power.
The power.
They don't want.
That's good telling. Okay. Now, you don't get what you want, you get what you plan for.
I'd say that could be Wall Street or wellness. I don't know. I always think, I'm like, isn't that a Beatles song? Or where you don't always get what you want, but you get what you need.
What you plan for. Yeah, but I mean,
Yeah.
but yeah, I totally agree. But I actually think that it could be both because planning is always at the center of everything. If you don't plan for your wellness, anything could go wrong with your health. If you don't plan for your money as well, same thing could happen. So it was just great having to play this with you. Thank you, Jessica Morehouse. I have more questions for you before we wrap up this episode. What financial advice would you give to international students and newcomers who are just trying? First of all, remember that they just came to the country. They don't know about the financial structure of Canada. They're sometimes challenged with finding credit card, building their credit card scores, even securing accommodation because they need to have good credit score reports for them to secure accommodation. So in general, what would be your advices to such families or newcomers who are coming in here?
Well, the good news is there are actually some really amazing Canadian influencers who actually I'm friends with who have like YouTube channels and Instagrams that were immigrants themselves and international students and now are, kind of relaying that information. So I'd say try to find some of those financial educators that speak to you in your life experience because they probably walked through, all of those doors that you're trying to walk through yourself. And I'd say also lean into the community of other international students or people who used to be, because again, they know exactly what hoops you have to go through and all the things. And there's like obviously in person kind of groups that you can be a part of or online forums and you can ask your questions and people will have answers. So I'd always say with that, find a mentor, find somebody that who, again, did exactly what you're trying to do because they are more than happy to help the next generation.
That's great. And, we're talking about social media. Social media is such a great tool, but it also has a way of glamorizing wealth. Like you see how people are living their lives, they're going on vacations every day, wondering, why am I not in Bahamas too? How can we balance, rather, I'll rephrase my question. How can we manage the influence we get on social media and yet stay true to our authentic, genuine selves? Because we have a goal. I want to be realistic about it.
Yeah. I mean, it can be difficult, especially if you're on the apps and you're just scrolling. And so you're seeing anyone's social media. But in general, what I tell people is, if you want to be influenced by positive things or people that are, providing good information, you do need to curate who you're following and then maybe kind of stick to that. And also, I think limiting your time on social media, because honestly, it's so funny. I started using this app that is basically one of those apps that kind of says you have this amount to focus, and then you'll get a 5-minute break, and then you're allowed to go on social media. So like having
Oh,
some sort of
lovely.
barriers. Yeah.
Well, what app is that, by the way?
Oh, you know what? Let me find it. Hold on. I just started using it. It's really cute, and it's free. It's called Focus Friend. Focus
Focus
Friend. It's
Friends.
really great. And so having some sort of, tool that you can use if you feel like if you're on social media a lot and then whenever you log off, you feel not so good about yourself, you're on social media too much. You need to have those breaks, take the weekends off, really kind of, again, set those personal boundaries because the longer you're on these apps, the more and more you're going to be influenced and think different things than maybe before you got on the app, being like, oh, I'm feeling really good about my financial situation. I've got all these things going for me. And then you go on social media and you see someone on a private jet and you're like, well, I'm nowhere near there. Social media isn't real. Most of the people that film these things are renting a space that looks like a private jet, but it's not real. So just remember, social media is not reality and it is just fantasy. And you always need to come back to you, your goals, the life that you want. And remember that money does not bring happiness. These people sure have luxurious lives. You have no idea what's going on once they're not filming.
I
They may
love
not
it.
be as happy,
Yeah.
you know?
Because we don't get to see the backstage, what's behind, what's
Nope.
happening.
We have
So
no idea.
yes. Now, in your book, you talk about money as a tool for empowerment. For most
Mhm.
people, it's still something that they don't talk about very much. What does true financial freedom look like for you?
Mm-hmm. So I think financial freedom is something that everyone needs to define for themselves. For me, it is I want to have flexibility. I want to be able to say yes more than no. I want to feel secure and not feel worried about, oh, I don't have enough. I want to always try to get rid of that kind of scarcity mentality and have more of an abundance mentality and just feel good about my future, but also to have the flexibility that I can help others or I can, oh, there's a GoFundMe. I can donate to that and not feel like, oh, I'm stretched thin now. And so for me, that's what it is. It really is this sense of security and freedom and flexibility to say yes more than no. But for you, it may be different. And it doesn't necessarily have to have a number attached to it. Sometimes it does, but not always.
Hmm. I love that. I love the perspective. It doesn't have to have a number. Okay. Now, Jessica, um, I know that everyone who clicked this episode today is navigating some financial goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've said a lot of profound things. I'm even trying to summarize all that you said, and I'm finding it difficult to do that.
Right.
However,
That's why I wrote a whole book.
yes,
There's too much
exactly.
to capture in one episode.
True, true, true. So for anyone who has clicked the link to watch this episode or perhaps, wanting to purchase your book, there are a lot of things to take away, but in few words, how can you summarize what are those major, most important things that they must take away from this episode or from reading your book?
I'd say the biggest takeaway, and I actually left this for like the very last paragraph of my book, and this is the original title of my book, is you are more than your money. Your money should not define you. You are more than that. And I think we need to remind ourselves that life is more important than money. Obviously it can be very important. We need money to pay our bills, pay our rent, get ahead, but it should not be the end goal. It should just be a tool to help you get to where you want to be. So never lose sight of what money's role should be in your life.
Isn't that a great way to end today's show? Because money for sure is a good driver to help you live the life of your dreams, but it's not. I mean, you are not as important as money. Your money is not above you, it's beneath you. So focus on you, money will come. Did I say well, Jessica?
I love that. I love it. I love that.
All right, then. Thank you so much. And before I let you go, one more question. They asked me to ask you this question, so I'm going to ask you very quickly. Can you share a personal money turning point from your own life that taught you a lesson you will never forget?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. What's something, going through the journey of writing this book was the biggest money lesson because I thought I had a healthy relationship with money going into writing. And then as I started writing and self-reflecting, I realized, oh, I have a very toxic relationship with money. And I've been teaching people about money for years. And so biggest lesson for me is really, yeah, getting to the root of your why for your money. If you don't, then you're just going to be on the same track. And so for me, I really need to, again, separate myself from money. And that's made me so much happier.
Well, what a powerful and timely conversation. A big thank you to Jessica Morehouse for helping us peel back the layers behind our money stories, and for reminding us that financial freedom isn't just about the numbers, it's about healing, clarity, and courage. So these are the real conversations that we all need more of, and they are happening right here at Conestoga, on Your Conestoga Today. Don't forget, don't listen only, purchase the book. You can find the book Everything But Money, The Hidden Barriers Between You and Financial Freedom on Amazon, Indigo, and everywhere you get a good book. So the name of the author is Jessica Morehouse. Very easy to find. It's a very colorful, appealing book. So I encourage you to go find the book. We invite you to keep the conversation going. Follow CCD TV on all of our social media platforms for more stories that inform, inspire, and empower. And if you are a brand or organization looking to connect with a vibrant, engaged audience, reach out to us today about sponsorship and advertising opportunities. In fact, you can send an email to ccdtv@conestogac.on.ca. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and remember, your worth was never tied to your wallet. I'm your host, Mamuzo. Have a great day.